So it's a pleasure to present our project focusing on a novel genetic model for therapeutic research in prion disease that Nicolas Biza is here and myself are developing in my lab. So we are located in Paris at the Salpêtrière Hospital, where famous neurologists such as Charcot, Babinski, and Gilles de la Tourette worked and taught in the 19th century. This is the Salpêtrière now. We are located in a new building, the Brain and Spine Institute, providing state-of-the-art technological platform dedicated to transnational neurosciences. So our lab is also the French Center of Reference for Prion Disease in France, and we coordinate the National Surveillance Network. All the members of the team are grateful to the CGID Foundation for its support, and we especially acknowledge the José and Maria Pires Memorial Grant, the Jeffrey and Mary Smith Family Foundation, the Tom Stevenson Memorial Grant, and the Patrick Hobbs Memorial Grant, also the Strides for CGID grant, and all the families supporting our project. We have a long-standing interest in prion therapeutics, and we contributed in the past by 2 clinical studies, notably, one using quinacrine in 2004 and one using doxycycline more recently. Despite negative results, these studies were useful to better understand the needs for future clinical trials and to improve our knowledge on future procedure of recruitment, notably in an international context. Remarkably, it was possible to initiate these clinical studies soon after the scientific results were obtained, because both compounds, quinacrine and doxycycline, have a previous approval by the FDA and have known safety data and pharmacokinetics in humans. This is why another important property of a molecule, if one would like to foster clinical validation, is that the molecule have to enter into the brain to cross the blood-brain barrier. This is why we decided to establish a drug repositioning strategy using FDA-approved compounds known to enter into the central nervous system. Concerning the 3 other properties that are important, listed here, the compound should be active against human propagation, or its effects should be validated against human prions, and as far as possible by using several models, including in vivo model. So to identify such compounds among libraries of hundreds or thousands of molecules, we clearly need a screening strategy. So we chose to set up an in vivo simplified genetic model in lower animals, namely the nematode Ceronabditis elegans. This is a little worm that is obviously far from human beings, but allows a high throughput approach. We also decided to stretch a little bit this model toward human relevance by overexpressing a human prion protein in this animal, and by using a mutation, the 200 mutation. As you know, this is the most frequent mutation among genetic forms of the disease. And we also add a validation step in the mammalian cell models infected using CGID isolates. So, why using worms in a drug screening strategy? First of all, because of its transparency and short cycle of life with important progeny, allowing a high throughput approach, notably using fluorescent probes. In addition, the number and the connectivity of the neurons of this worm is very well characterized, and nematodes are devoid of prion protein. So Nicolas Bizat introduced this model in the lab a few years ago, following a fruitful collaboration on octa-repeat insertion. We generated double transgenic animals. We choose to target a specific neuronal network, the mechanosensitive neurons, because there are only 6 mechanosensitive neurons in the worm, and they can be quantified easily. Okay? In addition, their dysfunction and their loss is associated with a clinical phenotype. So we drove the expression of a reporter gene, the green fluorescent protein, into these neurons by using a specific promoter, the MEC7 promoter. So we have a system where the mechanosensitive neurons appears in green, in fluorescent microscopy, and can be easily quantified. In addition to this reporter gene, we also express in this animal the human prion protein, the wild type, or the mutant with the 200 mutation prion protein. Among the lines that were generated, we isolated, we selected 2 lines expressing similar levels of the wild type of the mutant prion protein. The wild type in blue, the mutant in red, as shown by quantitative PCR. We also validated that the level of expression of the green fluorescent protein is similar in both lines. Next, we check whether the prion protein can be detected in the living animals by using immunostaining and Western blot of the prion proteins. And as expected, in mechanosensitive neurons that express the green fluorescent protein, we also detect the prion protein with membrane reinforcement of the signal. On Western blot, the prion protein appears as a 3 bonds pattern that was sensitive to PNGS treatment, meaning that the prion protein is glycosylated in neurons. In transgenic animals overexpressing the mutant PRP, we also observe intraneuronal inclusion, suggesting the formation of PRP aggregates and a relative resistance of the protein to proteinase K treatment as compared to animals overexpressing the normal protein. We quantified the number of PRP aggregates in transgenic animals overexpressing the mutant PRP, and we observed a higher number of neurons with aggregates, a higher number of aggregates per neuron, and a higher volume of aggregates in animals overexpressing the mutant as compared to animals overexpressing the wild-type PRP. These alterations were associated to neuronal loss, notably in the tail of the animals. Normally, we have 2 mechanosensitive neurons, and we observe a significant neuronal loss in animals overexpressing the mutant PRP. This is represented here in red as compared to blue. When we suppress the expression of the mutant PRP using an RNA interference strategy, we restore the number of neurons, meaning that the neuronal loss is due to the mutant PRP. This neuronal loss was associated with a clinical phenotype, a decrease in the touch response, this is the normal response, that involves the activity of the mechanosensitive neurons and their connectivity to the motor neurons. So in animals that are expressing the mutant PRP, we observed a decrease in touch response that was suppressed when we inhibit the expression of the mutant PRP using RNA interference. We also validated that this model can be exploited to detect anti-prion activity by using doxycycline treatment. Doxycycline is able to restore the touch response and to restore the number of mechanosensitive neurons in treated animals. So, on this basis, we establish a screening strategy using a library of FDA-approved compounds known to enter into the brains that was studied at 3 concentration from 1 to 100 micromolar and using animals that are expressing the mutant PRP. So the readout is the number of green fluorescent mechanosensitive neurons in the tail that are quantified using an RScan high content system, allowing a relatively high throughput strategy. So the drugs that will restore the number of mechanosensitive neurons will be further explored in step 2. We will assess whether this effect is only due to neuroprotection or is also involving an effect on PRP accumulation. And finally, in step 3, the most promising drugs will be validated using a mammalian cell system infected using human prions. This is the library we use. We collaborate with Prestwick Chemicals. So this is a large CNS library with a diversity of therapeutic effects and molecular targets. We also add a smaller library with antimicrobial compounds known to cross the brain-blood barrier. Here are the first results. So a prerequisite was to eliminate the drugs that are directly neurotoxic. So to this purpose, we test the drugs on nearly 50,000 of animals expressing the wild-type PRP. This is the baseline, the normal number of mechanosensitive neurons per animal, and we only observe 4 molecules that are directly neurotoxic, mostly at very high concentration. So this did not come as a surprise because this library is a clinically validated library of compounds that are used in humans. Next, with the 316 other compounds, we test them against the neurotoxicity induced by the mutant human prion protein. This is the untreated control and the baseline, and you can see that a vast majority of compounds have no effect. However, we got 17 hits, meaning that 17 molecules are able to inhibit the neurotoxicity of the human mutant protein. This is the results in more detail, and we have a diversity of pharmaceutical classes that are effective, and some drugs have a nice dose effect. I will not enter into detail into the drugs because this is the first run, the first results. We have to validate these results by a second run in the same experimental setup, and then probably with 70 drugs, we will go on step 2 and step 3. Step 3 will involve the use of cerebellar granule neuronal culture Sionin at Codon 1. We previously published that these cell cultures can propagate sporadic Creutzfeldt-Jakob isolates with peer-peer production and peer-peer aggregation within neurons. And we also showed that this system can be used to detect antiprion activity of some compounds. A short overview. Our main objective is to take advantage of a simplified model of genetic prion disease that we developed in worms to screen a library of FDA-approved compounds that enter into the brain in a drug repositioning strategy to find new use for all drugs, to foster clinical validation. The expression of human PRP with a 200 mutation induce the formation of PRP aggregates and the death of the targeted neurons in transgenic animals. So using an automatized system, we are able to screen the effect of hundreds of drugs on prion-induced neuronal death in these transgenic animals. Most promising molecules will be further validated in CJD-infected mammalian cells in the time frame of the project, and after, of course, we will validate the drugs in mice infected with CJD prions. To conclude, I would like to thank the members of the team that are involved in the project, and notably Nicolas Bizat, who is the worm guy in the lab, Sofiane Lawes, a young researcher that is very dedicated to this project and provide most of the screening data. And once again, I would like to acknowledge the support of the Foundation. Thank you.